I'm going to present to you. Last week I asked somebody what alumni meant. Somebody else tell me what alumni means. Who said that? Excellent. It was probably the other person that told me last week. Yes, absolutely. Ian, who is immediately behind me, Ian Elson is alumni, which means he was a past student at Greenwich University. As I shared with some of you last week, he was taught by Richard Cooper in Richard's fairly young days, yes. Matt has just revealed to me he studied with the opposition. He mastered at South Bank, which is actually okay. That's not too bad. Lasted. 3 degrees of separation. I had a work experience student with me during the summer. One day shortly I'll share her and my video with you. You were waiting for that, that work experience student, in actual fact, is Ian's niece. Yes? I got that right. So whilst we're working on 3 degrees of separation, one or two of you in the class might just recognise Ian's surname. She's behind you, and Ian and Laura are related. They're not married, they're brother and sister. That is right, isn't it? You're right, I've said you both. Okay, so now I've set Ian in context. The presentation you're about to see, I actually saw Ian and Matt deliver as part of CIOB CPD, and they were brought on board because they were working on a neighbouring project to one of my colleagues on the CIOB committee. Not only is their presentation absolutely fascinating, but there are lots and lots of key learning points, very specific to what you're going to be learning, what you're going to be considering for the next couple of semesters. I think they're going to invite questions as they proceed, but without further ado, I'm going to give you Ian and Matt. Yours.
Thank you very much. Fantastic introduction, and I'm not sure we'll go from there. But the first part of this presentation is we're going to give you a little bit of an overview on what Land Securities as a company are doing in terms of development around the country, mainly in London. Then Matt is going to go into some more detail about his project, which is New Gate development. And I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Land Securities. Some might not. We are the biggest PLC property company in the UK, or UK PLC property company. There are plenty of others that are bigger than us, that are global, but we're the biggest UK-only PLC property company. We split our operations into 2 main divisions, retail and London office. And in terms of retail, we are all over the country in pretty much every major city. We have a presence of some description, and we also, under that banner, own ex-leisure. So if you're keen snowboarders or skiers, we own Sodo, those kind of things. Lots of various leisure destinations around the country and part of that portfolio. And then in London, we really stick to mainly commercial office space, but on the back of that we now do an awful lot of high-end residential projects that are making quite a lot of money at the moment, and retail that tends to be on the back of the commercial office space. So we've got a nice big office, and retail underneath works very well. So just some of the things that we currently own around the country. Stand reading all out to you, some of the shopping centres, not all of them, retail parks, obviously some of the ex-leisure facilities, and the Apple hotels is something that we're just starting to get out of. It's not core business, and it's going to be off the portfolio pretty soon. So the part of the company that myself and Matt work for is the London portfolio, where we deal, as I say, mainly with commercial office space. And in that portfolio it splits down. We have office space in Docklands in the city, Southwark, Victoria and West End. We also have were strategic projects. Strategic projects, everyone heard of Blue Water? Right? We don't own Blue Water, but what we do own is the quarry space next door, the empty quarry space, and it's east of the quarry. And we own a number of other large sites like that around, just about within the M25, outside London mostly, which are sites where you can potentially build up to 6,000–7,000 homes. And we have owned those for some time. There's a current strategy to actually exit from those, so we're packaging them up, passing them off, getting them to residential developers. We're not a true resident developer to build out. So over the next probably 8 to 10 years, you'll see Eastern Quarry start to fill up houses, and that will be various developers that will actually build those, and we either join in with a joint venture partnership with them on a profit basis, or we just sell out. Springhead, everyone heard of Springhead, which is the first part of using the quarry site. That is actually one we've done with Countryside Homes, where we've actually gone in on a 50-50 deal with them effectively. Once that's built, I'm guessing we'll move out to the rest. It's not particularly core business, and it's not where we sit. So generally, the two main areas at the moment for us are in the west end of Victoria and in the city. And actually, between myself and Matt's worked on a large scheme in the city, which is what he's going to talk to you about, and I'm working on an even larger scheme in the west end of Victoria. In terms of some of our completed schemes in relatively recent years, Bankside 2 and 3 on the South Bank, just along the Tate Modern, which in fact the hot news of the press is we've actually sold today. One New Change, which Matt finished off, worked on. Any of you been up to One New Change? Up by St Paul's. It's for us, it's a fantastic development where it was actually, for a commercial office building, it was retail-led. So we virtually doubled the amount of retail in that area of the city just by opening their scheme. We a bar on the roof. Yeah, fantastic bar. Good restaurants. Yeah. And it's an interesting shaped building. If you get a chance to go up, you won't miss it if you go up by St Paul's. Can't miss it, it's huge. Queen Anne's Gate, which is something I did a couple of years back, which was a refurbishment of a 1970s building designed by Sir Basil Spence, any of you into the architectural history. It's a 500,000 square foot building, which we turned from, it was the Home Office. When they moved out, we refurbished it on behalf of the Ministry of Justice, who we now occupied. And that was a truly good project. Kept me busy for about 4 years. New Street Square, which is a DJ Deloitte now, or Deloitte's actually, is their campus where all the Deloitte buildings are. That's something we built and own, so they rent all the space from us. And was probably, I think it's actually the highest earning development of all time, very closely followed by Queen Anne's Gate. Cardinal Place, anyone been to Victoria Station? Well, the building is quite, you can't really miss it, you go to Victoria Station, very prominent, and the Cardinal Place development was the first real major development in the area for a long time. Victoria used to be quite flat. It was very government office based, lots of 1970s concrete buildings that weren't very attractive. Cardinal Place was the first scheme that we had there to start our major redevelopment of the area. We're now completing something like £2.5 billion refurbishment of the Victoria area over various sites. Going off now, 123 Victoria Street, actually my last job I've completed, which was a refurbishment, again, quite an iconic building. We let 200,000 square foot of office space back into the market and got fantastic rents, probably the highest rents in the refurbished space, definitely in Victoria. 62 Buckingham Gate, which is the building at the bottom, is just completed and probably, I'm officially informed, about 80% let. So that's flying now. It's really fantastic. It looks great. and it's been another big success for us. And Wellington House, the last one on the slide, is 59 apartments we built. We've started getting into high-end residential property because we had to, because if you build anything in terms of commercial office space now, you're obliged to provide residential property as well. Wellington House was our real first dip into the high-end property market. The apartments there, 59 apartments, the average price per square foot of sale value was about £1,400 per square foot. So a one-bedroom flat would have been something like £650,000 to £700,000, working up to the penthouses, which sold for just over £5 million each. I've placed through is a bit quicker. Victoria Circle is the team I'm currently on. So one thing we know Victoria, the huge site, the big, basically flat site at the moment, that is now known as Nova. It's going to be massive. It's going to take us until the end of 2015 to finish the first phases, and it's really exciting. At some point, I'm trying to get some more information on it, so you can hear from the lecturers about what we're doing there, because it's an immense scheme. It will be the biggest basement in London. It's been built for an awful long time. About 16 metres deep, and the size of the site, so everyone who knows the site, it's a huge area. Interestingly being built top down, so we actually cast the ground slab and then we excavate 15 metres below it. And that's quite an interesting way of working for us. The other one, 20 Fenchurch Street, you can't fail to know about Walkie Scorchy. Desperately trying to not mention too much. It's a fantastic building that's letting extremely well before we've even finished it. We have obviously had a few issues with a little bit of fresco on it. Those are now being resolved, so we don't block people next year. That's all enough said on that one. 62 Buckingham Gate, we've already seen on the previous one. The other one we're currently building on Victoria Street is Zigzag and Kingsgate, which is actually two distinctive buildings on the same site, with the Kingsgate building being a residential block of 100 flats, and the Zigzag building being just under 190,000 square feet of office space. That's due to hit the market now. It's going back a bit, third quarter 15. And it's getting some really good press already. So, in terms of the London pipeline schemes, we just actually sold Oxford House. We got planning permission for it and sold it. That's the speed at which development happens. Sometimes you're building, sometimes you don't. We've just received planning permission for Portland House, which will actually be, it's the tall tower in Victoria. So again, anyone knows Victoria. There's a very large concrete tower there that's pretty ugly at the moment. This is what we plan to replace it with, and that has been given planning permission. It will have 206 residential apartments, and we're looking at an average price per square foot of knocking £3,000. So the top floors, the penthouses, have an estimated value of £35 million each. To give you an idea of why we think it's worth that and why the valuers think it's worth that, if you get to the top of this building, you look straight into Buckingham Palace Gardens. It's the only place where you can do that. You can, at the moment, unless anything changes in terms of planning law, no one will ever be able to build anything that high again in that area, because Westminster won't let buildings happen that high. And so it's a very prime piece of real estate for us.
The Queen's not very happy.
The Queen's not very happy. In fact, if you go to the roof of the building, you have to give the security services prior notice that you're going up there, and we're not allowed to take cameras. And they're happy stories of people going up without permission and actually seeing laser dots. So they're being watched. It's a prime location. You're literally just looking straight down into the palace. One New Street Square, we're just out to tender on that, and I think the demolition of the existing building is due to complete in March next year. But that should continue straight on. And 1 and 2 new Ludgate is really what we're going to get to, which is where I think that takes over in a moment. Other schemes we're looking at, Six Castle Lane is a relatively small scheme for us, where we're looking to put around about 30 high-end residential flats on the site of the old Westminster Kingsway College. It's not really our core business, it's too small for us in reality. We were asked by Westminster to look at it because the college had a very small building, they didn't know what to do with it. It's a bit of an eyesore. No one wants it for educational use anymore because it's not a big enough site and it's just not particularly useful. So we were asked to go and try and assist the college with disposing of that building. The way we do that is to actually go and report it from them. We're trying to get permission to put residential units on it. It's looking quite positive right now. So it's not about making money that one, it's more about keeping the profile with local authority. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to help Westminster because we need to keep the conditions. We've built so much in the area, it's quite a key thing for us. The other one there, 2-4 Castle Lane, which is the old accommodation for the former Stag Brewery. There's a bit of history. The Mova site that I talked about a few moments ago is the site, well, historically was the site of the Stag Brewery. That was, I think, finally demolished in the late 60s, I believe, or early to late 60s, when the buildings on the site that were there before just carried out our demolition and put up. And these blocks had obviously been around for a long time. They were accommodation. In recent years, they were a hostel housing people with addiction problems. So it wasn't a particularly well managed centre. The local residents don't like it very much. It's not a very pleasant place to be. The centre closed down. We bought the buildings, and the idea behind that is we're going to actually refurbish them, and then they will become affordable housing, which is the affordable housing quota that we have to provide for our Portland House development. The Portland House obviously sitting just behind the camera there. So we actually provide in that block there 90 affordable housing units, and they will be managed by an affordable housing provider. So we do the work, we pay for buildings, do the work, we sell the properties on to the affordable provider for what they can afford to pay us for them. So effectively, doing that, we take a £25 million hit. But £25 million is equivalent to our affordable housing credits that we have to come up with to be able to complete the high-end residential refurbishment or replacement of Portland House. 20 Eastbourne Terrace is an interesting building for us. We've owned for a long time most of Eastbourne Terrace, which is up by Paddington Station. And we've refurbished, I think, we own 5 of the buildings along the terrace. We've refurbished and we occupied 4 of them. The final one, 20, is due sometime soon, but it's been in the pipeline for quite some time. I guess when we find somebody who wants a space for refurbishing, get it back on the market. Unit updates. So Matt, tell us a bit about Peter.
Right, thanks Ian. Nice of you. This is nice, isn't it? Nice on the South Bank. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about this project New Ludgate, give an overview, some development history of it, some of the objectives when we started out, the design, and we'll talk a bit about the pre-construction period that we had to go through when the project was deferred, and also some lessons learned from other land security projects. So New Ludgate is basically a mixed-use development, which means it's a mixture of office and retail at the bottom. It's designed by Fletcher Priest, an English architect, and Sandra Putton, a German architect, about 350,000 square feet of office space. And one of the key things for the planners was the creation of this new sort of public piazza space in the middle. So where it is, it's right on the edge of the city. It's actually just outside the front door of the Old Bailey. So we often get the press outside the awning and the sites that are covering any of the sort of major trials that come up. We've got 2 other properties which Ian touched on, which is One New Chain, which is sort of down the road by St Paul's, and then New Street Square, which is nearer into the city. And we kind of like this area because the transport links are really good, so tenants sort of tend to favour that. That's one of the important things there. Just to get a bit of historical context, it's a very old part of London, around Ludgate and Lyndhurst. There used to be a river going through there called the Fleet, and that was after the Great Fire of London in 1666. A little history there. It was gradually developed over as part of the redevelopment of London. It became an underground river and a canal briefly, and then gradually as London has evolved, it's now completely developed over. There's a big association with legal firms in that area as well, so it tends to be a lot of lawyers around there. Obviously got the Old Bailey and all the criminal law history that goes with that. So one of the tenants we're appealing to, one of the markets we're appealing to is the legal market. So these are the buildings that were there before, so fairly sort of ugly 1960s buildings. And the planners were very keen that we gave the site the permeability, which means that you have the ability to go across it rather than just round it. We can't, they have this thing in London called the St Paul's Corridor, and what that means is there's certain views that you can't develop within, you have to keep buildings out of that view. So there's sort of various corridors around London that you have to work around. So we had to be sort of cognizant of that. And it was a pretty crappy old development, really. The resale wasn't very good, and some tenants were gradually sort of feeling they were living in quite an old building. So when we set out to do something, we wanted to turn it into a really grade A office space, great public space, good positive architecture, respects and enforce height restrictions. The energy and sustainability thing is really important to us now for more and more tenants. Not just from a moral perspective, but more and more tenants are insisting on energy efficient sustainable building. And good retail and restaurants. And we also had this other problem with the site in that there was a substation in the middle of it. So that square blob in the middle of the site, that's actually owned by EDF, or UKPN as they're now called. That's a big old power station. So we've been trying to do a development agreement, which means that they would give us rights to develop next to them, and we would be respectful of their building as well. And we tried to do that for about 6 years, and eventually with this scheme, we managed to go into a mutual development agreement with them. And what that development agreement said is that they could oversell our building with their claims if they built last, and if we could do vice versa. Define working zones around building that we could work in if both buildings were being built at the same time. And they also agreed to put this thing called a thermal shield around the box of their building. And the purpose of that is because they're generating all this electricity. It gives off a lot of electromagnetic radiation. And we were concerned that tenants would move into the building and worry about the potential for that sort of leaking into the office space. So the answer to that was to put a shield around it, which would encapsulate all of that and sort of make sure that wasn't a risk. So that was all part of the development agreement that they would build that shield, which they've now done. The site has some other site constraints as well. There's a tunnel that runs through the middle of it. It's that sort of curvy yellow thing with red blobs going across it. That's a cable tunnel, so we have to park on either side of that and put transfer beams across it. There's a Thameslink railway line runs across the top of the site. So we had to put monitoring the tunnels while we're doing substructure works, check any movement, and we had to go to a thing called a parcel wall. I don't know if you know what that is, but basically, if you're building within 6 metres of another property, you have to go into a thing called particle wall, which sets out sort of the way you're going to do that without affecting their building. So that's just a picture of what the old building looked like and what the new one's going to look like. So the development is actually 2 buildings. So one New Ludgate, which is this highlighted one here. So it's a 9-floor building. It's got this sort of fantastic terrace on the 5th floor that looks out to St Paul's. You can just see it at the bottom right there. And yeah, it's designed for one person for 8 square metres, which is about the sort of normal criteria these days. It used to be around 1 to 10, around 12, but more and more tenants want to get more and more people into the building because it's cost efficient for them. 2.7 metre floor to ceiling height and BREEAM excellent, so that's a sustainability target. So which basically means it's a very sustainable building. And then the other building, which is on the other end of the site, this is the one designed by the German architect. That was originally conceived to have these glass louvers on the outside of the building. And they were movable, and basically they would move with the sun. So when the sun comes out, these louvers, the coloured louvers, they would close and shade the building from the sun, but you could still see through them from the inside. So they were sensitive to the sun. They were programmed to follow the path of the sun, and it was based on a building that Sandwich had built in Cologne, and it was it's quite new and quite iconic. It was the first time it had been done in the UK. Unfortunately, when we started trying to let the building, the tenants we were talking to really didn't take to this idea at all. They didn't want things moving around outside the windows. And there was quite a bit of scepticism about the whole idea. So we've had to tweak the design slightly, and they're now fixed louvers. It still looks the same, but the louvers don't move to follow the sunlight, which I think is a shame, but you've got to follow your market. So just a little bit about the build. So we basically excavated the footprint of the old building, built a new perimeter wall around the edge of it as a retaining wall, and then put props against it to hold it up. So the basement is pretty much in the same box that the original building was in, and we're just lining it with a concrete retaining wall. And then we've got piles going in. The piles are going in between the old piles, which was quite a challenge because there's 700 piles in the ground from the old 1960s building. So we're having to sort of pile these in between them. And we're putting 800 new piles in, 27 metres deep, about 450 metres in diameter. So it was, from an engineering perspective, it was quite difficult to get the locations right, so you didn't hit the old paths, there's the new path. But that's finished now. We started that 2 months ago, and they've just finished the piling. And then the cores, I don't know if you know about slip form, but slip form is basically a very fast way of building concrete cores. It's a rig that goes up very slowly, and they pump the concrete into it, and it gradually forms this concrete core. It does about 1 metre a day. So all the primary cores, in fact the secondary ones as well, are all slip form cores, and that just kind of adds to the speed of the program as we go along. So 2 new lug gate is a concrete frame, whereas 1 new lug gate is a steel frame. The reason for that was the concrete frame, so a PT slab with a post-tension slab, allows you to have much bigger spans for the slab. And what that means is you have fewer columns inside the building. And again, from a letting point of view, tenants don't like columns, they like big open spaces without columns. So that was really the drive behind that. And then on 1 new located, because of the design of the building, we didn't really need these huge spans. So we went to steelwork. Steelwork's a lot faster to install. So that kind of led that decision. So when it comes to the cladding, so on 1 new located, it's basically a unitised double glazed glass cladding system, but it has these white concrete fins that act as solar, well, they act as an architectural feature, but they also act as solar shading, sort of passive solar shading.